Welcome back. One of the biggest sex abuse scandals to hit America was that of the Catholic priest found to be abusing young boys in their churches. Recently, a priest was convicted of covering up that abuse. Not a real big shocker to hear that. But our next guest says that kind of abuse is more widespread than you may think. Televenge is a fictional novel. It is based on personal experiences by its author, Pamela King Cable. Pamela is here with us this morning. Good morning, and it's good to have you here.
Thank you.
What inspired this book?
The book was inspired by just different things that I had gone through in my lifetime. I was married to a megachurch ministry team member, and for 17 years I was married to him, and part of a megachurch for about 25 years, and experienced a lot of different things, from the sublime to the bizarre. And about 1988, I left the church under great distress. And of course, it ended in a bitter divorce for myself. But I wanted to know, questions that were not being answered correctly. And I was being shunned as I left the church. And a lot of horrific things happened to me as I left the church. And so I kept a journal during that time. And as I did that, the book started to come together for me.
Started almost to write itself. What
Yes.
was one of the most disturbing things you saw as part of that megachurch that you were involved with?
Well, for me personally, I think the thing that happened to me, the most horrific thing that happened to me personally, was I went on a crusade at one point, and when we got there, had been married for 10 years, was our anniversary, and I discovered that we were not allowed to stay in the same hotel room. And the reason that we were given was because we had to concentrate our minds to God and get before the Lord before this crusade and so forth. And to me, in my mind, it was against the scripture, what God has joined together, let no man separate. And his reasoning was, well, we're not, sports teams don't stay with their wives when they travel, but in my mind, we weren't a sports team, obviously. We were families, and he was separating the families, and he did a lot of that. And I think it's not just in the church that I came from, but as I wrote the book, I interviewed over 100 people that had come out of churches quite similar to the church that I came out of. Some of them I knew, some of them I didn't. And the similar thread that ran through all of our lives is that when we left the church, we suffered horrific obstacles and things that we had gone through. It just, we just had really suffered a lot trying to come out of the situation. A lot of churches will shun their members when they leave. Our pastor told us when people left to just give them a good letting alone, and we weren't allowed to talk to people who left. And we were afraid to leave. So,
we see it happening in the Catholic Church a lot, right?
Yes.
Where a lot of the priests, whenever there's an allegation of sex abuse, typically the bishop will come in, take the priest, move him to another church,
Yes.
and bring a new priest in.
Right.
It's been done. That's not even allegations. That is the truth.
yes.
I'm not experienced with mega churches, and really hadn't been until I moved here to the South, where
Right.
you have these mega churches. Why do you think that there is, as you say, a controlling of money, a controlling of power, a controlling of its members' sex lives? Why?
Well, first of all, megachurches right now are all over this country. They're everywhere. They're in every state in the union, actually. But the reason there's so much control, I think, you've got one man who doesn't answer to anyone. If that pastor does not answer to a board or deacons or the denomination that he's a part of, if he doesn't answer to anyone, then he can pastor as he pleases. And there's no one that confronts him, because actually, in the congregation's mind, he is the voice of God.
Right.
And we looked to him for answers when it came to our everyday lives.
And when you talk to victims of even sex abuse, and if there's stuff going on, I know we had, there was Eddie Long, the big controversy about him.
Yes.
Someone who is in a very high profile and very big positions,
Right.
accusations
Right.
that he was doing inappropriate things with young boys, members of this church.
Yes.
But we saw in those stories, members of that megachurch defended him to
They
the
do.
end of time, and they still do to this day.
And they will. But there are still those within that congregation who may have questions and may have something concerning their spirit. I'm not advocating for people to leave their church. I'm not advocating for people to bash their pastor. What I'm saying is for people to be cautious, and that if they have a question, they should be able to ask questions. And a lot of times, you're discouraged, and
right.
People don't want you to ask questions, and you're almost held in blasphemy if you ask questions. That should not happen in a church situation at all.
Yeah, right. I was raised in a Catholic church, went to Catholic schools, and we definitely felt that even back when I was in high school and growing up, is that you never question a priest,
Right.
you never question authority inside the
Exactly.
church. I don't know if times have changed. I don't know, because I'm not a member of the Catholic Church as I once was as I was growing up. So I don't know if the mood has changed, but I know that at least now there's a lot more eyes on at least the Diocese of Orange County and
Yes.
in Los Angeles,
Yes.
where we've seen a lot of those scandals
Yes.
break.
Right.
And perhaps now that once one person has come forward, as we've seen in the Jerry Sandusky trial, more colleges will be open to the suggestion when an accusation comes rather than pushing it underneath the floor.
Yes.
So
Well, the bottom line is the church shouldn't hurt. It shouldn't
never.
hurt.
Love doesn't hurt.
No,
And love should never
it doesn't.
hurt. So, all right, Pamela King Cable, thank you so
Thank
much.
you
The
so
book
much.
is Televenge, a fictional book based on true stories. Stay with us. We'll be right back to wrap up the show.